Welcome to Heart Riffing, a podcast by way of the heart. Here we explore what it means to reconnect with your essence and live from a place of personal freedom. If you're interested in learning more about our courses, mentoring and workshops, feel free to visit wayoftheheart.com.au. We're so glad you're here and we hope you enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Heart Riffing, a podcast by way of the heart.
Hello.
Hello, Bello.
Hello.
Today's topic, we're actually drawing on an idea that has been floating around for a while. You came up with it a long time ago, and this is this idea of being closed and sure.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about it today because I've actually found it to be practically really helpful in the way that I deal with people. In the way that I deal with others, in the way that I deal with workplaces, and even sort of in the way that I deal with myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if you could just take us through this idea, what's closed and sure, and we'll go from there.
So in terms of just the process of me engaging, communicating with people, mentoring people, counseling, doing change leadership with leaders, and working obviously with religious people over the course of my kind of life, this kind of person came up again and again and again and again and again. And it was the person that you would be communicating with or that you would be expressing an idea with, and you'd be trying to maybe collaborate, or you'd be trying to maybe, create something together or do some kind of community service operation or whatever it was. And you would find a person who has already a very locked and loaded idea about what should be done. And there's zero negotiation, and whatever you say doesn't penetrate, whatever you bring doesn't land, and that basically the opportunity that they give you is you can get on board with the way it is, or not.
That's it.
Right. And the more I dealt with these people, the more I was incredibly surprised at how closed they were. There was two characteristics that I noticed about them. One was that they were completely closed to any kind of input from other people. So there was no flexibility. There was no there was no capacity to collaborate. There was no shared dynamics. It wasn't going to be an exchange. It was going to be like, get on board. This is the train. This is the bus. I mean, there used to be Good to Great was a book that came out, and one of the ideas in Good to Great was this idea of you've got to get the right people on the bus and you got to get the wrong people on the bus, which was kind of I think is this kind of septic idea that if you're on my bus, I'm telling you where it's going,
right?
And you're going in this direction, and if you don't want to go in this direction, and you're not on, then you're on the wrong bus, and you need to get off the bus because this is where we're going,
right?
And that was kind of heralded as this kind of leadership touchstone,
Awesome.
This is the bus. This is where we're going. Get on board.
Forceful leadership.
Right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus. And you go, okay, it's just a very closed perspective. So that was the first characteristic. It's just very closed. There's very little room to add to that. You can participate in that, but you can only participate in that as kind of a supplicant or as someone who goes, oh, okay, it's so great that I'm on your bus.
Yeah.
And I'm let's do it your way.
Yeah.
Which means that you cut out a wealth of kind of human talent, human experience. It's like you take the richness out of it. It's like, this is a single flavored cake, and if you don't like this cake, then you don't get cake.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, okay.
Awesome. Cool.
Wow, we all like orange tea cake.
It sounds great.
If you don't like marzipan, you can't have any cookies. Okay, I hate marzipan. The second characteristic of these people was, and this always astonished me, because a lot of the time people who fall into this category are not the most realized people. You know, that I'm being super polite when I say that.
Yeah.
All right. Second characteristic was they were completely sure that they were right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And the longer I went on, I just termed this, you know, people would say, what's it like working with so-and-so? And the politest response I could have was, they're closed and sure.
Okay.
They're completely closed and sure, which was code for they are not open to any input. They're open to working with you as long as you comply. They're open to being in relationship with you as long as they get to lead. And they're completely convinced that their chocolate cake is the best chocolate cake on the planet, and it's the only one that you should be eating. And if you don't like their chocolate cake, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, and obviously I'm using chocolate cake as a metaphor. You know,
There's actually
please
an
don't
issue.
think this guy
This
is
an issue
obsessed with pastries.
endemic to bakers only.
Yeah. And so it was just a category of person that was just closed and sure.
Okay.
And it was helpful to identify.
Totally. So I've got so many questions off the back of this.
Yeah, great. Good.
I'll throw a couple at you and then you can decide which one you want.
Okay.
What's the opposite of closed and sure? And then how do you deal with people who are closed and sure? And then how can you identify that you're closed and sure and maybe you need to change that? So take your pick and then I'll do the rest.
So the opposite of closed and sure is obviously open and curious.
Okay.
An open, curious person knows that they don't have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might even be even more awake than that, and they might go, not only do I not have the answer, but there could be 10 answers, right? And not only that, there could be 10 answers, but there's only one answer that my heart will actually resonate with. And so I need to enter into a process of, I foster a dynamic of curiosity, and I enter into a process of discovery. And in the process of discovery, I'm open to realizing all sorts of things about myself, about other people, about the way things work, about what it's like to just explore and to go, yeah, I don't have a definite map of the territory. I mean, that was one of the contributions that kind of neuro-linguistic programming gave to the coaching industry. It was this idea that the map is not the territory. And it was the idea that we humans in our heads, we create kind of neural maps about the way life is or about the way situations are. We've talked about this at length in terms of the way we create narratives. And those narratives become our intellectual map, right? And it's like, this is the territory. And the reality is, no, that's the map of the territory. So I could draw a map of, you know, my place down to the water and around the point and blah, 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 blah. And I go, here's a map of here's a map of the territory. And you would say, what's it like? And I go, it's like this. And I show you the map.
Yeah.
And the moment you step out,
completely different.
There's things that I've excluded from the map that aren't in the map. And for whatever reason, my brain didn't include that because it deleted it or distorted it or generalized it. You know, this was kind of the contribution of our early neurolinguistics, creators, that they noticed that we were doing this and they noticed that we were creating maps. A closed person goes, no, that is the territory. No, that it is like that. A curious person goes, wow, I've got a map. I don't need the map to correlate to reality. Reality might be really different.
Yeah. How do you get to being closed and sure? Because I feel like when we look at this with, particular disciplines, take academia, for example, yes, you need to be curious to an extent, but also you have entire, not industries, but sort of papers and theories that reward you for being sure and certain about your hypothesis. So, how do people become closed and sure? Is it because they're afraid of something? Is it because that's just kind of the way that we're wired? Is it
Yeah.
because of an identity piece? Like, what's happening
Yeah.
that cultivates that?
Well, I definitely think the aspirational desire to be the expert is one of the, being the expert is one of the worst things you can possibly be.
Right.
And in John Snowden's Kenefin diagram, and Kenefin just means the multiple places of your dwelling. He identified the fact that people live in simple, complicated, complex, chaotic, and transcendent spaces all at the one time. Some things in their life might be simple, some things will be complicated, some things will be immensely complex, and some things will be in a state of chaos, and some things are just beyond touching because they just belong to someone else, right? But they're still in your world. So he said, you can live with all of those 5 dynamics simultaneously. And he said, and simple things we should generally get right, feed the cat, brush your teeth, these are like, can we tick off the simple stuff, right? He says the complicated stuff is we often need an expert because, like there's things that experts know how to do that we don't know how to do because it's their sphere of expertise. He says when you jump into complexity, the last thing you need is an expert. You go, well, why is that? If things are really complex, surely you want experts in the room. And he goes, no, you don't want experts in the room because they don't bring curiosity. They bring their expertise. So they interpret everything according to their expertise, and all of a sudden this complex, multifaceted thing that you're dealing becomes a one-dimensional thing that just somehow sits within their expertise, and they're the expert that can give you the answer.
Yes.
Right. So one of the things is, one of the ways that we become closed and sure is we become an expert.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah. And so I avoid the tag expert. I want to be number one in my field. I want to be the expert. I want to be, the defining voice in the heart-centered lifestyle space. It's like, shoot me now,
Yeah.
If there's 1,000 voices talking about how to live out of your heart, fantastic.
Yeah.
No one should be the expert. No one should be the guru. So expertise is a great way to become closed and sure, and that's a status marker in our society. That's a complete status marker. And people like status, they like authority, they like being the dominant voice in the room or the expert voice in the room, the one that everyone listens to. All of that is, from an ego perspective, very desirable. So that's one way, I think. Another way that we become closed and sure is that we, uncertainty is tiring.
Yeah.
If you're not curious, uncertainty is tiring. If you don't have a base level of kind of curiosity that says, I actually don't need an answer. I actually don't need definites. I'm feeling my way into this. I'm sensing my way into this. I don't need to arrive at an answer now. I'm happy just to explore this. A lot of people aren't in that place at all. A lot of people go, tell me now. Tell me exactly now, and they can't live in the liminal space of, I don't know. What's the answer? A lot of people won't admit that they don't know.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? I don't know what I think.
Yeah.
You ask people what they think, and most people will make up some stuff. And a lot of the time you just go, did you just make that shit up just now? And they'll go, yep.
Yeah.
Well, they won't admit that. They go, no, that's what I think. And you go, really? It sounds like you just pulled that one off the top of your head right now.
Yeah. Like, don't poke too hard. It might all unravel.
Yeah. Don't cross-examine me.
Yeah.
So curiosity requires a particular kind of disposition to life that doesn't need everything nailed down directly in the moment. So if you're constantly in your ego, curiosity is a hard kind of characteristic to cultivate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the ego wants to work on certainties.
Yeah. So then, I mean,
well, that's the opposite of closed and short, open and curious.
Yes. And I feel like that's I feel like we've defined it really well and sort of how it happens and why it happens. But I'm sure, like for the people listening, I'm sure you can identify in your head somebody who you've dealt with who you're like, yes, that person is such a closed and short person, be it in, your family or friends or workplace or whatever it is. How are you supposed to interact with those people who are closed and short? Are you supposed to, or are you just supposed to go, oh, I understand what's going on here. That's got to inform my behavior?
I think it depends on who you are individually.
Ooh, really?
I think so, because some of us just go, Carl is closed and short. Just let him speak. The meeting will finish, and then we'll all just go and do what we do and don't worry about it, So there's some people kind of already, have a more kind of just let it go through to the keeper, which is a cricket analogy for those of you who might be in the States. It's like, let it go through to the keeper.
Yeah. Then I guess, like, to personalize the question, how do you deal with people who are closed and short?
I provoke them.
Do you really?
Yeah, as
I don't let it go through to the keeper.
I almost never let it go through to the keeper.
I let it go through to the keeper.
Yeah.
Like,
I almost always provoke. Yeah.
Why? Because it's fun.
Because it annoys me. No, I don't find it fun anymore. I just find them annoying.
Okay.
And I just like to. I don't know how effective or how kind of helpful this is. I like to bombard them with multiple points of view. I swamp them with things that are close to their territory. So if I meet a fundamentalist Christian, I love to swamp them with the Hindu trinity of, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and say, that's so much like the Christian Trinity, which it's not. It's not even remotely. It's not. It's not.
I love it.
But I like to say stuff like Krishna is a type of Christ, which gets your average evangelical, gagging on their hot dog, like, you serious?
This episode's actually just how to be a shit stirrer, really.
Well, it's just, and so I ask them a lot of questions, and I often don't come out feeling good from this either, is that I ask them questions that I already have the answer to, but I'm interested to hear what their answer is.
Okay.
And then when they give me their answer, I often go, well, what about this?
Okay.
And a lot of the time, that is completely futile waste of time.
Yeah. Okay.
And they don't suddenly go.
They thank you for your provocation, and then you walk away feeling really fulfilled and seen, and they walk away feeling really fulfilled and seen.
I remember sitting on a patio once up at Foster with some people, and I really like this couple. They're a lovely couple, but they're very, very conservative Christian people. And I did that kind of all night. And at the end of the night, she's a dear friend. She just turned to me and she goes, and she has a particularly bad relationship with her father. And she goes, you so remind me of my father. And I just went, ooh, that's not good. And she said, now I know how to pray for you. which was like in her world, wow, that was a big slap. That was a big slap. Yeah.
Wow.
And I knew that I'd kind of crossed an emotional threshold. They genuinely loved me, and they were genuinely tolerating me, but she did want to let me know that I was crossing lines that was straining the boundaries of the friendship.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not always a good strategy, but because I am curious and because I have spent my life trying to challenge myself around what I believe. And because I have come from a very conservative, closed and sure environment and have evolved out of that into a much more curious and more open space from tribalism to pluralism.
Mm. Well, I mean, that's interesting too, because the dynamic that you're talking about is when a closed and sure person is met with like a curious and open person, right?
Mm.
But I would imagine that dynamic is completely different when you have two closed and sure people meeting one another.
Well, they either agree or they don't agree.
Right.
You know, they're probably not going to roll together.
No.
You know what I mean?
Probably not.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I feel like I am the opposite to you. I think I'm much more likely to just let people have their own ideas. But I think
that's probably the adult thing to do.
But maybe debatable though, because I think that I think that can be used as an excuse not to engage with people. And I think that can be an avoidant tactic as well. So like you almost kind of need a little bit of a mix of the two where you engage, but not to the point of provocation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it just depends on the sort of person that you are and how you roll, you know.
I guess then for, a workplace situation, if you've got a boss who's closed and sure and you're like, oh my God, he is just, or she, or they are just so certain of the position, even though I can see that this is, going to result in the shit hitting the fan.
Yeah.
How do I engage with this?
Well, I'm the worst person to ask on that one.
You've had a lot of experience in helping people through this, so are you?
Well,
really?
I mean, you do. What do you do? You could probably do some risk assessment, and you could probably go, listen, what's the value in challenging this? I mean, the chairman of Way of the Heart is probably one of the most experienced and or highly regarded businessmen in Australia, right? Like at the complete top of the tree, infinitely better than anything that I've ever done. And his capacity just to hold his space, hold his posture, is unbelievable. So he'll hear that, he'll onboard that to whatever level that he wants. He might have already dismissed something out of hand and gone no, but he will never break the he won't ever break the social context. Do you know what I mean? He won't outwardly challenge. He won't have a look on his face as if to say, well, what a load of horseshit, like he'll just go, okay, take that on notice. He'll have a bunch of ways that he'll just let that person feel like they're being heard, and then he'll go and do whatever he thinks is the wisest course of action. Do you know what I mean? With respect to what this person wants me to do.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll also be working on what he thinks is a genuine value add to that particular community. I will not do any of that.
No.
I will have a look upon my face as if to say, have you been smoking drugs this morning?
Yeah.
I think that's a complete load of horseshit. I won't even need to say I think that's a complete load of horseshit, because the person will be going, are you okay? And I'll be going, yeah, I'm great. Yeah. And so clearly my longevity in corporate life is small, which is why I was a consultant, because I would go in there and just insult, that was fine. They were paying me. They were paying me. They were paying me. Pay me my invoice, and then I'll be out of here. It's like, we'll pay your invoice. Now get out of here. That really wasn't my world, and I had insight into it, but I didn't have the mastery of. I didn't have the mastery of living in an institutional context. Like, I'm not an institutional person at all. I'm not a domestic animal. I used to pride myself in saying things like animals of instinct animals of instinct find their own food, which was like, you won't find me sitting at the door begging for some more kibble.
Yeah.
Like I'm a wild animal. I'll go off and forage for myself. Thank you very much. I don't need to obey this rubbish.
Are there things that you're closed and sure about?
The things that I'm closed and sure about are things where, this is the Shakespearean, I perceiveth he protesteth or she protesteth too much. You will find that there are things which have pinched and or hurt me through the course of my life, things that I protest about, things that I've deconstructed. But then when you say, talk to me about institutional religion, you'll notice that my critique of institutional religion, if we really, really get into it, my critique of institutional religion is incredibly well honed. It's incredibly precise. And you'll go, wow, you're actually quite good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something going on here? Like, I think you put a lot of effort into that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, I have, because it hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I can be a little bit closed to the point where I write off institutional religion, or I write off my evangelical or my fundamentalist brothers and sisters of any persuasion,
So to summarize, what I'm hearing is that our history of things, our history of experiences, or our history of things that have hurt us or caused some type of trauma can lead to being closed and sure in particular areas.
Completely.
So it's not just lack of ability to sit in obscurity or uncertainty. And it's not just, societal conditioning loving us to be certain or an expert about something. It's also, I've reached out and I've touched the stove and I know that the stove is hot kind of thing as well.
Yeah, and I've had a bad experience. And so that bad experience shapes my critique of that situation or that person or that context. And then I lock and load that as like an unequivocal, never to be moved reality. And people will remind me, i.e. the chairman of Way of the Heart reminds me constantly that business is actually good. It's necessary. The corporate world isn't all bad. I've got, the same couple that, the same lovely girl that chipped me on the balcony, is still a very conservative Christian, and they would be two of my closest friends. And when you look at their life, there's aspects of their life where I just go, completely admirable. I would love to be more like that. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's more nuanced than that. And so, yeah, I can be closed and sure about that. But then when I'm with them, I just go, oh, they're beautiful people. I'm glad they're in my life. As for their church, well, let me tell you the 10 ways. And I think it's a nightmare,
Yeah.
And to their credit, I could give them the 10 ways that I think that their church is a nightmare, and they'd go, 7 of those are a completely fair critique.
Yeah, right.
And 3 of those are coming out of your woundedness. And he'll say that to me too. He'll say, the problem with you, mate, is you've just had such a bad experience in it.
Yeah. Okay.
He goes, we've had an amazing experience. Most of our best friends are here. And you just go, yeah, they've had a completely different experience to it. So sometimes closed insuredness is completely personal, related to your experience. It's not it may not be universally true. Do you know what I mean? We're not talking about universal truth or ultimate truth here. We're talking about just the way that someone shows up. And yeah, I can have a bit of closed insuredness about me as well. Wilbur mentions it a lot in what he calls the mean green meme. So in terms of those levels of consciousness, you're going up through egotism to tribalism, various stages of tribalism, tribal literal, tribal rule role, tribal power. And then you're getting up into, rationality, and then from rationalism it jumps into pluralism, and in these are all worldviews. So states, or not states of consciousness, levels of consciousness which are worldviews, right? Because every level of consciousness has a worldview. And he says the pluralistic worldview. Now, what pluralism is obviously more than one. So, we see that in our society with the people who are like really inclusive and they embrace all the things that we would want them to, all the things that we look at now and go, yeah, that's a very, the manosphere calls them those woke ones, I use so woke as if waking up was a bad thing.
And it's like, thank you.
It's the worst thing in the world, That person's so woke. What, you mean they're awake? They're aware. It's like, well, yeah, but it's lefty woke. Just go, oh, okay, all right. Kind of think that's actually a compliment rather than anything particularly negative. But then you get in early stage pluralism, you get this. I am inclusive of everyone except those bastards who aren't inclusive.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Except the patriarchy, except the manosphere, except the mining companies and those people that are, it's like you go, oh, okay. Can you see the challenge here?
Yeah.
You're closed and sure about those people over there, and that closed and sureness actually undermines your inclusivity.
Yeah.
A genuine inclusivity includes everyone, even the ones that annoy you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why sacred texts like the Bible in the Gospels where it says, love your enemy, do good, love your enemy and do good to those who hurt you. We hear that and we go, get stuffed. I'm not going to do good to that person. It's completely annoying. They're my enemy.
Totally.
Well, the whole idea of that is it's a genuinely late stage pluralism moving into an integral consciousness or a consciousness that just goes, everything is included. Good, bad, right, wrong. It's, it's all the kind of the stuff that we often talk about. The sharp end of the knife, the blunt end of the knife. It's all there, right?
Yeah.
So at that stage, you've moved well and truly beyond having to fortify yourself in a closed and sure kind of context.
It's interesting that you talk about that thing of being so inclusive that you're exclusive. And this leads me to one of the last questions that I wanted to ask, which was, if you notice within yourself a bit of closed and sureness, how do you become more curious? How do you become more open? Or how do you, to what extent is that okay? Like, you have an element of closed and sureness when it comes to institutionalized religion. To some extent, that's okay. How do you cultivate openness, and how do you?
Well, we try to find line, don't we?
Yeah.
Because I have a certain closed and sureness to way of the heart as well. In the fact that when my heart tells me something, I just go, yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could say that heart clarity is a form of closed and sureness. So, and it's not like certainty is a bad thing. It's like, I don't think it is a bad thing.
It's an energy, right?
I think the closed and sureness that I talk about in maybe a pejorative or in a negative sense is when someone has locked themselves away from input.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's great to have a certain sense of certainty about what you're doing and where you're going, or what your convictions are, or what you believe you're being led in your person to do. But the true test of that is you just bring it into the marketplace, you bring it into the open, and you say, yeah, this is where I'm at. And people say, people can participate with that. They can criticize that. They can critique that. Like people can say to me, well, you shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z or whatever it is. And I go, okay, that's fair enough. I can take that on board. I can listen to that. You know what I mean? And so in the sense that you're not really closed, you might be certain or sure about what you're doing, but you're not really cultivating this kind of rigid, shut down, don't give me any input. Anything that, and I try and cultivate this, right? This is probably the next stage of my own spiritual development, is cultivating a perspective where you're open to all people. Right? You know, like I'm negative about different world leaders and stuff like that because of the effect that I'm registering them having at a global level, right? But that, and it's good to, I guess in one way, it's good to be certain about that. In another register, it's good to be curious about that as well, and go, am I doing that because I have locked myself into some kind of inviolable position? Do I know everything about that situation? Like, I have a very good friend of mine who is Iranian. He calls himself Persian, you know. He's the closest friend that I've got to, like, our relationship is as close as it's going to get to Shams and Rumi, you know what I mean? He's truly a beautiful individual to hang out with. And I've asked him over recent weeks with the Iran war, what is happening to family members of him back home? And I've even asked him, like, what would happen if you and I hopped on a plane and I went to Iran and hung out with your family? And he goes, they would love you. They would just love you. And I go, well, what would that look like? And he goes, oh, the food. He goes, they would cook for you. They would delight in taking you different places. They would, you know, cousins would want to meet you. And so here's this picture of this fundamentalist Muslim state, you know, run by the clerics, currently at war with the West. And my Iranian friend says, if you went there, you would just be celebrated. You would be treated with such hospitality. And he goes, the other thing about it is these people have so little. Their economy has been dead for so long. You know, they've got no money. You know, they have very little resources, and yet they would lavish you with rich hospitality. And I go to myself, not that I actually don't have a negative position about, I have a negative position about any form of fundamentalism. I don't have a negative position about Islam per se, you know. But it's interesting that people that you might assume would be closed and sure to me, he's going, no, they wouldn't be like that at all. That's something that you've downloaded. Do you know what I mean? So that reminds me that in any particular moment, the presuppositions that I bring, or the apprehensions that I bring, or the perceptions of the way I think it's going to be may not actually be true. And that has to keep us curious then, because okay, if it's not like that, what is it like? Which is a real challenge, right? That's also a spiritual formation challenge.
And it's a fine line too, like you said, because you don't want to be so porous that you don't have any boundaries, right? As in, like, I'm quite closed and sure about the church in that I wouldn't want to walk into a fundamentalist Christian church as a gay woman because I know that that's not going to go well. Or I have the presupposition that, like, it's not going to go well based on previous experience. So, but I don't want to be curious to the point where I'm putting myself in a situation that is violating to me or crosses my boundaries or sort of sets me up for suffering, right?
No, I don't think anyone wants to set themselves up for suffering. It's the nominal idea that, or it's not even a nominal idea. It's the curious idea that even within a fundamentalist community, could there be someone in there that you really resonate with?
Sure.
Could there be a soul person where two hearts meet, and yet they shouldn't? Because you go, well, I don't, you know, and that's like my friends who are quite conservative Christians. You know, it's like I love those guys. I think even when we were younger, we thought, you know, if Ange and I weren't to be here, you know, who would be great parents of our kids? It's like they would have been, you know, completely trustworthy people. So there's a part of them that I love deeply, and another part of them that I go, you guys are too close to sure about this particular aspect of their life. So I don't know, it's an interesting designation, and it's one that you can play with, and it's one that you can, you know, it's a gun that you can point. And it's like, as everyone likes to say, as you're pointing there, there's three fingers pointing back at you, you know, like you like this was like, oh, 1, 2, 3 pointing at you, you know, it's like, yeah. So it's one that you can point at others and go, oh, that's, you know, so-and-so's so closed and sure, you may as well not have the conversation. Or in my case, they're so close and sure, let's pick a fight, you know?
Yeah.
And then you can point it back at yourself and go exactly like you did and say, well, where am I closed and sure? Where have I shut up shop?
Totally.
And if I've shut up shop, then how's my journey to genuine integral pluralism, or how's my journey towards genuine love of people? How's this was, remember when Ram Dass says, that Neem Koli Baba turned to Ram Dass and go, Ram Dass, love everyone. And Ram Dass said to Neem Koli Baba, he goes, Baba, I can't. It's too hard. He goes, Ram Dass, love everyone. Love everyone. And it was like, it sounds simple. It sounds like, oh yeah, just love everyone. But then you meet someone who's completely closed and sure, and they don't want your love. David Bosch was a famous missionary to Africa, and he got to Africa, and he's a famous missiologist. Like he spent his lifetime studying it and doing it. Very, very clever man. And back in the day, so I'm going right back into my early Christian theology and missiology. And David Bosch said, I went as a missionary to Africa to take the gospel to them. And when I got there, I found a group of people that weren't interested. Not that they rejected it. Just, I don't really care. It's like I'm taking something to someone and they just go, nah, I'm okay. I took a meal next door to my neighbor and then they went, no, I'm actually happy with my food.
Yeah.
But I'm here to bring the gospel to you. And he goes, and the reality was I went to take God to them and I found out that they already had God for themselves. Mm-hmm. And he goes, so how do I give someone a meal when they're already sitting down to their own banquet? And it's like, yeah. So that all of those kind of, that they were closed and sure more out of just like, we're okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a challenge. How are you going to figure that out? Yeah, it's a playful idea.
It is. I think I like the idea of introducing play when it pertains to, I mean, obviously others, but also when it pertains to self, because I think that the idea of trying to understand or to feel into where you're closed and sure is a dance that you have with your own heart.
Yeah.
And you go, it's a conversation that you can begin to have around like, oh, maybe I am a little bit closed and sure here. Why am I closed and sure? Is that a heart feeling or is that a trauma feeling? Is that what is this and why is this? And I think that it feeds back into this bigger idea of the personal formation that you have that comes as a natural result of turning inward and listening to your heart and allowing that space and that voice to sort of blossom.
Yeah. And I think the only people that really struggle with that, as I struggled with it when I was in this situation, is people who find their whole identity in an ideology. Mm-hmm. That would be the big challenge. Mm-hmm. People who have defined themselves through some ideology, and for them to open up would be a form of compromise. Mm-hmm. Right? So name it. We have members of our family who, when you came out as gay, it was like, no, that's not acceptable. Mm-hmm. And you go, it's not acceptable not because not because they don't love you. It's not acceptable because for them to accept you as a queer woman would be for them to dismantle some belief that they have. Mm-hmm. And they're not allowed to, in their tribe, they're not allowed to dismantle that belief. And so they go, you're forcing me to make this choice that I don't want to make. Mm-hmm. You're forcing me to choose between you and Tara and my belief, my heartfelt.
My me, right? Like, choose between their identity, who they are.
Yeah, I've invested all of my energy into this belief, and now you're asking me to do something which is contrary to what I believe is right. And you go, okay, well then you've outsourced identity purely into that, and you've locked and loaded that as the right way to live, and so therefore anything contrary to that has to by default get rejected. That's a tough closed and sure situation. That causes pain, as you know full well.
Yeah.
It causes rejection and pain and all of that sort of stuff. I got the same when I got the same. I didn't get anywhere near as adverse as that, but I got people that were genuinely disappointed in me that I left the church and that I don't identify as being a Christian anymore. People who genuinely have trouble with that and just go, wow, he lost the plot. He lost his faith. Well, where did he leave it? Oh, he left it down at Clerval Beach. I think you can go down and pick it up for him and just return it.
Yeah.
It's like he lost his cat, went off. And maybe it'll come back. Let's cross our fingers. Maybe it'll come back of its own. It's a very salient point because while we were doing this podcast, Mr. Ezekiel, my cat, my personal cat, was let out the door by someone very clumsily, and he escaped for the last 2.5 hours. So if you're wondering why I'm not wearing a flannelette shirt like I was, it's because I spent 2 hours climbing through the bush looking for my cat, which we could not find.
He did come back.
Who came back of his own. So there's still hope, not just for my cat, but also for my faith, which might return of its own accord. We lost the plot. We lost the plot right there.
We did. Yeah, I can't bring it back from that nice little irreverent ending.
Closed and sure. It's a playful idea. It's not meant to be a judgment. It's just a playful idea. It's a way of looking at aspects of your own life and or the aspects of the people that you interact with and maybe just going, wow, look at that. That's a hard place to navigate because it's a closed and sure place. Closed as in nothing more is getting in, and sure that it's correct, meaning it's not open to other input. When you see that in your own life, and maybe this is the place we can finish on, when you see closed and sureness in your own life, you can do one of two things. You can look for the wound, as I illustrated before, with the sense of wounding that I had from my own spiritual formation, my own spiritual journey. You can look for the wound in that and go, oh, is this an aversion? Is this an aversion that I've developed through previous pain? The other thing that you can do is you can look for potentially an attachment. I'm so attached to this. I've invested so much of my identity in this. But if I have to let go of this and open up and become curious, I fear that I'm going to lose something, so I can't let go of that attachment. So, classic kind of Buddhist landing place. Check out the aversion, the illustration that I gave. Check out the attachment, the illustration of family members that we've got that just go, no, not doing that. Yeah, closed and sure, good indicators of aversion and attachment.
Let us know your thoughts, as always. Reach out. I always say this, only some of you ever do, but do reach out. Let us know your thoughts. Very interested to know.
Jess is getting disillusioned because you don't talk to her
Yeah,
enough.
guys, I'm so lonely.
Talk to you later.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Heart Riffing. If today's conversation resonated, you can find more of our work, including courses, mentoring, and workshops, at www.wayoftheheart.com.au or on our Instagram, Way of the Heart Official. We'd love to hear your thoughts, reflections, or questions, so please always feel free to message or comment. We look forward to seeing you next time.